This is cool. Emma Solomon, welcome to the lockdown sessions.
I've spent the past 10 minutes fixing my hair. This is very exciting. I get to speak to you at work.
I know. Well,
Never has this happened before.
normally we're passing in the day. We have to book a podcast session to talk to each other. So you have the delightful opportunity to actually live with me. So
yes, so I just like to say you're either brave or very trusting to have me on here. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure, because this is our 50th episode, and it
Yes.
seems totally appropriate since you've been involved in pushing these podcasts out as well.
Yeah.
So you operate as a creative designer and a photographer.
Yes.
And you have been with me through lockdown, so you've got a real insight into how I've operated. But we're not here to talk about me.
Good. We're not here to talk about us.
We're here to talk about your observations.
Yeah, okay.
Lockdown. And I always start every single session, as you'll know, with the same question. So I'm going to fire it off at you as well. And we'll take it from there. So it's just like a jamming session. So there's no script. Tell me what your observations and learnings have been as we now embark on lockdown 2. And this is now kind of 7-8 months in to lockdown. What have you been observing and learning?
I think that lockdown 1 and lockdown 2 are two completely different things. So lockdown 1 for me was the easiest thing to do at the beginning because, as you know, I've been working for myself for 16 years. So being in my own environment, my own space actually wasn't challenging. To not go out to work wasn't really challenging. And actually to speak to people on camera and do everything virtually was not challenging because it's something I've been quite used to. So I found that a lot of people that my contacts, my professional contacts and friends were a little bit nervous at the beginning because it was so alien to them to actually change the way they work and actually structure their day. So I started from I was about St. Patrick's Day, I seem to remember, middle of March, running these sessions at 11 o'clock every morning on Facebook, these live 11s. And they lasted sort of 15, 20 minutes. And it was just a chat to feel more connected to other people. And at the beginning, I thought I was doing this to help other people, to support other people if they were struggling a little bit. But as time went on, the more everyone felt more comfortable, more understanding, and not so nervous about COVID, and felt a little bit happier, more content working in the home environment. I found that my feelings about it completely changed. I was no longer there to help somebody else. It was almost as if I needed to do that for my own sort of confidence and my own structure on a daily routine. So it became, at the beginning, I was trying to do it to sort of support and help other people. But, after about, how long did it go on for? 8 weeks. By the end, 8, 9, 10 weeks, I realized that, gosh, I was needing it. So my whole perspective of why I was doing this and how COVID, the lockdown was affecting me was sort of changing as I was going through. But I did feel definitely more connected to the outside world, which I think was a benefit. And also I think a lot of people enjoyed it and actually they got something out of it as well. I think when we look at this lockdown 2, I feel completely different because the fear of COVID no longer exists, I don't think, in our country. I mean, okay, no one really wants to get COVID, but we're not afraid of catching it as much as we were at the beginning because we know so much more about the disease and we know how to protect ourselves. So I don't feel that there's this need from everybody in the country to sort of continue this, me supporting anybody and doing these online 11s. So I've stopped that completely, and I felt at the end of lockdown I did feel quite jaded and quite just depressed. Actually, I think I felt a little bit run down, not so much physically, but mentally and emotionally. I felt quite run down because, as you know, I'm quite a social person. So I really missed that social connection to other people. So I did think I really was suffering from lockdown fatigue at the end of lockdown 1. Coming into this lockdown 2, I think it's a completely different kettle of fish. Basically, I don't see that our world has changed that much. Yes, we are locked down, but we've been there, we've done that, we know what it means, we know what we can do, we know what we can't do, and we're just now getting on with it. It's almost become our second normal. So this really, I don't actually feel like I'm living in lockdown now, which is quite unusual. I mean, that's obviously from my point of view. I know the kids are actually suffering because they can't socialize at all. But for us, I don't feel there's that much different in our life now. This now feels like the normal. And I'm feeling a little bit more buoyant coming into this one because I've done it already. We've done the first lockdown. It was great at the beginning. Then I got more and more down and depressed about it. And now I think, right, we've had a bit of a break, and now we're back on lockdown 2. And it's almost like I've gone through the whole roller coaster of emotions, and I'm about to do it again. And every time you do something a second time, you just do it a little bit better and with a little bit more understanding. So I don't feel as stressed now as I was in lockdown 2. So I see them as two very different sort of experiences, I guess.
Well, they are, not least of all because this time round we have a defined endpoint. The first
Yeah.
time it was every 3 weeks, it just got extended, and I can remember we would have conversations with the kids, and it would be like, "What do you think they're going to say tomorrow?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think we're still going to be in
Yeah.
lockdown?"
And there's always that hope, and
right. Well,
maybe that's why I was so depressed by the end of 1, because I always need something to look forward to it and plan for, and I love hoping for things, and to hope that the lockdown will be ended and then they say, oh, it's going to continue. It just makes me feel a little bit down, and that was happening. You're right, that was happening all the time. So it just drained me of all my passion and energy. It was no.
It proves the lesson I learned from my father when I was younger, that with hope comes disappointment.
Yeah, but you need hope. You still got to have it. We can't not have it.
Well, and who knows? Because I talk to people now, and clients are saying to me, yes, they're all saying 2nd of December, but all we're going to do is come out into a tiered system, and there'll be people in your beloved Northeast who are probably, if it's still as bad as it was prior, will go still in a fairly strict lockdown environment. You talk a little bit there about, you were starting off your 11s when you're talking to people. I used to observe them. I used to watch them on my walks later. And you could see the engagement people would have. They would like to look forward to seeing you, to hearing. You would bring news topics to the day. So there's something quite philanthropic about it, right? You're giving to others.
Yeah.
But you said there that actually you realized in time that it was also feeding you. So when it stopped, what did you feel then? Because all of a sudden you don't have that regular.
Yeah. But I think at that point, I think you're right. But at that point, I think I was so low within myself that I remember we having a conversation, am I going to continue it? And I just didn't have the energy, because I'm not terribly good at actually engaging with other people if I don't have any energy within me. it felt a little bit forced, and it felt a little, it feels fake. I want to be completely authentic, which is why a lot of my 11s are either I was making mistakes and pressing the wrong button, or I ended up with floods and tears crying about certain days. I remember some moments it just was, I was quite upset. Some days I was laughing and on my soapbox angry about something or other. I have to be really authentic. I don't see why you would do it otherwise. So when I had no energy by the end, and I decided to stop, I felt actually that was okay, because I just didn't have any energy to carry on. And I think that's when I started to just slip down and lose that spirit. I lost my spirit inside, which was, I don't know what came first. I don't know whether I decided to stop and I lost my spirit, or I stopped because I lost my spirit. I think it's probably the latter rather than the former. So I didn't seem to miss it because I just didn't have the energy to do anything.
Behavior usually changes when motivation shifts. So the likelihood is that comes first. The motivation to do it then moves the behavior. But as somebody who is a creative, so you design, you take pictures, how do you, because I've said before on these sessions, I got a little bit annoyed at the beginning of lockdown, because all I was hearing from people was write a book, everyone's got a book in them, learn a musical instrument, learn a language, and I learned that I don't want to learn a language, I can't write a book, I play a musical instrument, so I don't need to learn one. Actually, I just wanted my business to be intact. You ran your own business for 16 years, but you worked within an events industry that was decimated by lockdown. And I'm intrigued by how, from a mental perspective, you create a positive attitude when you're observing the world in which your business operates literally shut down.
That was really, really hard. It was just heartbreaking. I mean, the only thing I did at the beginning, I couldn't do anything at the beginning. So as soon as everything was announced that we couldn't do anything, just all the weddings, all the events just stopped. So it was it was just like a curtain had been drawn, it just dropped, everything just stopped. And that obviously means that I'm not working, no money's coming in, and nothing's being done. And it wasn't until I was encouraged to start making these cotton face masks by one of my friends that between May and June I had 2 months of mayhem making thousands of cotton face masks. And I didn't really want to do that, I have to be honest, because at the beginning I felt really conscious that I was making money out of COVID, out of this disaster, this pandemic, and it didn't feel right. But then I realized that actually people wanted it. They realized that this is not a medical grade product, and I'm not trying to fleece everyone. I sold them at relatively nominal prices just so everyone had it. So for May and June, I was rushed off my feet making all these things. And then obviously with every shop in the land now sells them, you can even get them in the local garage in our little village shop. The demand for bespoke pretty ones sort of dropped off. So I then was really struggling to actually find anything to do. And that then tied in with the time of, my spirit dropping and realizing that, I start the year with about 55, 60 weddings. And as you can just see it by the end, now it currently stands at 3. And 2 of them, one was in January, one was in February. So I've only got one left in hopefully in November, but that might not go ahead because we're now in lockdown. So seeing those, a lot of them are postponed, but seeing all of those drop off is just so demoralizing. So it could have been that's maybe why I lost a lot of spirit. I suddenly was busy from May and June, then that dropped off, and then nothing really took its place. So it really has been heartbreaking, because you spend so much of your energy and time and passion and commitment working for yourself, building a brand which you're so proud of, and then it just disappears. Well, the brand hasn't disappeared, but the work's it's just gone. And it's nothing to do with anything that we've done. And I'm not the only one in this situation. That, I'm just, it's quite a common story, sadly. And it's just completely gone. And I think that's maybe why I started to look at doing different things within, my world. What else can I do that I actually love? I needed to find something to get that passion back, that excitement and enjoyment, because I'm sure I was probably quite boring to live with, because I just couldn't be bothered.
I'm taking the Fifth Amendment on that one.
I'm not. So watch what you say.
But you then go and pick up your camera again.
Yeah, I think well, we went, and then that's quite recent actually, because we were away in Scotland, and obviously, everywhere you look in Scotland and the Highlands, it's just magnificent. And it as the name suggests, everything's big. The mountains are tall, everything's just so big. And you drive through the Glencoe area and you're so insignificant. And you look at that beautiful valley, what is it? The Dinosaur Valley, the Three Sisters.
Yeah.
I love that path and the drive through. And I suddenly, it was like I was being hit in the face. Those mountains have been there for what, tens of thousands or longer, I don't know, like a long time. And we are just passing through, and we're so insignificant. And I thought, this world is so beautiful, there's so much out there, there's so much energy out there. I need some of that in within me to just build me up a little bit. So I remember taking lots of pictures with my iPhone, and then as soon as I literally came back, bought a secondhand camera, and now I'm just so happy. It's filled a gap, because there was definitely a gap in my soul and my heart that had been taken away because of COVID.
I think that's one of the interesting stories, because if we go back a few years when you were at school, you actually wanted
Just a few.
to be a photographer. Yeah, right. I did that generously, and I thought gently. But you wanted to be a photographer.
Yeah, I remember talking. I was 16. I can't remember if it was before or after GCSE. What were they? O levels in those days, GCSEs. But I remember saying to my guidance counselor, I went to an all-girl. That school was an all-girls school. That specific one I went to, and my guidance counselor was a man. And I remember saying to him that I want to be a photographer, a photojournalist. I want to, follow the news and travel around the world, just take pictures of things that are happening now. And he says, you can't. I'm like, what do you mean? Why not? Because it's a man's world, and you can't do it. You won't fit in. And unfortunately, I was a different person then. I didn't have the confidence, and it wasn't the time. It was pre-Spice Girls. I was a girl who did what I was told. If a man told me I couldn't do it, why would I argue against a teacher who obviously is a guidance counselor? He must know what he's talking about. If I can't do it, I can't do it. And sadly, I didn't do anything about it. And actually, everything changed in my life after that point anyway. So it would have been a little bit more tricky. But my next school was an international school, a mixed school. And I actually did a year's studying photography. And I realized that was the thing I should be doing. But unfortunately, I still didn't do it when I came back. I don't regret that, because I've done something different. But I do see myself as being a photographer, although I'm not doing it. I hadn't been doing it as a profession, because for me, being a photographer is not just taking a picture with a camera. It's actually looking and seeing the scene with your eyes first, and then wanting to capture that with the camera itself. So I just see pictures all the time with my eyes, and that's why I know I've never lost that love of photography, because I'm forever taking pictures, usually just on my phone. But now I've got a nice camera, so they are a little bit better now.
But I think what's lovely is the fact, and this is something I was talking to a coach called Steph Tranter about, actually on a podcast.
Yeah.
This idea of leaping, changing careers, and it requires real courage to do that. I'd be interested in your feeling about how much courage does it take to just do something completely different and start again, because there will be a lot of people who are listening to this. Maybe they've been furloughed, maybe they're under threat of losing their jobs. You've talked about your own network of friends who, you know, have struggled with their work relationships. What kind of courage is required to literally leap into something new? Even if it's something you're passionate about, you're good at, you should have always been doing all that other, that's just noise. You've literally leaped and said, right, do you know what? This is what I'm doing. I'm going to go there. Where do you, first of all, find the courage, and what does it feel like to make the leap?
I think finding the courage, I actually think I've taken the easy option, because almost I have no choice but to try something different because of COVID. I don't have any work. I don't, okay, not to diminish the clients I do have, but there aren't the weddings, there aren't the events. There isn't the demand, that I was getting from big corporations. We were doing TV and film and big name companies. One of the brand names, moving bunting across over all of Asia and Europe, not just Britain. There just isn't that demand anymore. So I don't feel that I can take credit for having courage for doing something different now. I think if we weren't in COVID and I made the leap then, I think that would take an incredible amount of courage. And actually, I'm not sure I actually have that, because I know I've talked to you many times about, do I carry on with bunting when I really want to do something else? And I didn't really have the courage to let it go. But now, because I've had to look at doing something else, I don't feel I'm very courageous. I think I've taken the easy option out. I think it's very incredibly different to change from one to the other. But I think a lot of us and people I know have actually changed completely what they've done now, because they need to, for one thing, but because they're able to, because they've got the time. And they've got, they're at home, they can't do anything about that. They're on lockdown, so they can see what else there is out there that they possibly could do. Yes, it might require retraining or, business coaching or whatever it is that they require. But I wouldn't like to say that I have courage that I've done this now. Am I pleased that I've done this now? Absolutely. Really, really love it, because I'm just so much happier. But that might be because actually I'm leaving the house and I'm actually having to talk to people. So the fact that I actually I'm photographing different subject matter, whether it's dogs or whether it's people, I'm actually having to communicate with people and actually laugh and try and relax people and build that sort of bond between the myself and the client, and I've really missed that. So I'm currently loving it, and I don't see why it wouldn't stop when COVID is over. I guess what I have to decide is what I do with the other business when things do start picking up.
Sounds like you need to find yourself a good coach.
Hmm.
I don't
Maybe.
know where you'll find one.
Yeah, no idea. But I think that would be the point that I would be able to answer the courageous question. Because I think the switch for me, well, I haven't left the other job completely. I've just sort of moved over into something that actually I love. I'm really enjoying. It's bringing me social interaction with people, which I really, really missed. And I'm just loving it, really. So if that is courageous, then okay, I'll take it. But I don't feel like I'm courageous, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but I think you shouldn't underestimate the fact that a number of people would still look at what you've done and feel that it was nothing short of courageous, because you are doing something completely new. Now, you lived in Japan for a while. You mentioned the international school.
Yeah.
And there's something in Japan, and it's a Japanese concept, meaning a reason for being, Ikigai. And it's a concept of how we live, right? So it's linking what you love, so your passion and your mission, with what you're really good at, so making it a profession, but making sure that it's something you can get paid for as well, and it's linked to what the world needs. So you've got these kind of four interconnecting circles: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can do to get paid. And when I listen to you, it seems to me that you've found, whether you've stumbled or courageously leapt, you've actually found your Ikigai.
Oh,
Because
okay.
what you're good at, you've got an eye for it, creative, you have a passion for it. What you love, well, you can go back to ages 11 to 16 when you adored photography and that's what you wanted to do. You get paid for it because people will pay for those kinds of portraits, landscapes, whether it's people, dogs, or places. And what the world needs, actually, people want to create memories beyond what they take on their iPhone. And I wonder when you hear sort of that, especially with your love of all things Japanese, maybe there's something in that. There's a real sort of a satisfaction and a feeling of being useful, which is linked to your delight for interacting and engaging with other people. Ikigai, it's called.
Ikigai. Okay, there you've taught me a new Japanese word. But it does feel like I've come full circle. And I think that's one of the and the other thing I think is the positive of lockdown, if we can find some positives, it's given us the time, well, certainly me, I speak for myself, it's given me the time to actually really think and reflect on what does make me happy. What do I need to fulfill all aspects of my own life? And we've talked about this in other times, that you can never control what anyone else says, or you can't make somebody else happy. You have to take all the control of that yourself. And I really needed to find within myself more happiness, because I was just not feeling enough. I wear my heart on my sleeve, that, and I feel all the time, and if I feel numb or completely despirited, I just can't be bothered. I have no energy. I need to feel that fulfillment and happiness from within in order for me to actually feel motivated to actually do something. So having the time to actually sit down and actually think, what's wrong? What aren't I happy about? What do I love? What am I passionate about? What do you think would make me happy? Okay, it's going to cost me money to set up, but I might be dead tomorrow, so just use the money and then and see if it's, you know, it's something that I can build on. And I guess that's sort of how I've moved into this new role, photography role, I guess.
Fairly fatalistic view. In
Well, you know what I mean. It's like what at our age, I not that we're old because we're
Careful,
all very young, but
careful.
you know, I don't want to waste time. You know, if honestly, the world has changed these past 12 months. The world has completely changed. Uh, in our country, across the pond, everything has changed, and it's happened so quickly. And I sort of feel like I don't want to waste any more time. I want to change. I want to do something and find that Ikigai and just run with it before it's too late, because the world is changing so quickly. I feel like, you know, I've got to run along with the speed of the change in order to keep up. Otherwise, I'm going to be left behind,
Well,
kicking my feet and being bored, twiddling my thumbs because there's no weddings or events. I
it's
can't live like that.
it's Darwinism in its most natural form, right? It's not
Got to keep moving
that,
forward.
yeah, you keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done anyway. That's the old Rocky quote. But it's true, right? Because, you know, as he says, the world is isn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
It's a horrible place and it will beat you down. But it's not about being beat down. It's about getting up and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But often people misquote Darwinism because they say, oh, it's survival of the fittest, and it's not. It's survival of the most adaptable. And when I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is actually you've acquired, or maybe always had, adaptability skills. So something goes wrong. Actually, yes, Ikigai is great, and you may well have stumbled on it. So fabulous. But actually, you stumbled on it because you look for adaptation. You couldn't just go on, whether it's low on energy, feeling low, or all the negative sides of what lockdown brings. Actually, what you did was you said, actually, if I don't adapt, I become irrelevant. So what can I do? And not everybody would go towards their passion. If you ask people what they want to be when they're 16 years old, most of them aren't doing that when they're 30, 40, and 50.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it's a lack of skill that gets in the way. I get that. I wanted to be a professional footballer. You know, there came a point when I had to admit I wasn't going to make it. But I know. But
sorry.
no, it's okay. I'm all right now.
Okay, you're over that.
It took 30 years of therapy, but I'm okay now. It's more about actually, you know, here's somebody that you know, in you, where you run a business, you run an effective, successful business, you build a brand that's well known, and then all of a sudden something happens in the world that knocks you out. And if we go back a year, and you and I would have been having dinner, and I said to you, where do you think you'll be in a year? Neither of us would have said in month 8 of lockdown.
Yeah.
So there's no way any of us could have known. And it's interesting because I'm doing some work with clients now on futurist leaders. How do you become a futurist? And it's about imagining what could be. And, you know, in 1962, John F. Kennedy turned to the American people and said, by the end of the decade, we'll put a man on the moon. I'm pretty confident he had no idea how they were going to do that.
Yeah.
And when Jeff Bezos borrowed 250 grand from his parents' pension to set up a bookshop in his garage, I'm sure he wasn't thinking of Amazon Web Services where you could buy cloud infrastructure or whatever right? But these guys, they imagine. You know, I read yesterday Tom Cruise has linked up with Elon Musk, and they're going to make a film in space on the space station, so they don't need a sound stage to create space. They're actually going to film in space. Right? Who would have thought? Like, that's a futurist, right? Elon Musk is a futurist. Electric cars. Branson taking us off to the moon for holidays. It will happen in our lifetime.
You, not us.
I will go.
I'm not
on
going
that.
to space.
That's fine. You can send me off.
Okay. See ya.
But when I listen to you, and I think of your creativity, actually creatives are also futurists, because what you're doing is you're looking at what can you do for the future,
Okay.
you know, to make you happy. And this Ikigai is all well and good, but when I listen to you, I think, well, how do you take the learnings from lockdown and make sure, because you've already touched on it being there are positives, how do we take the positives out? You're a naturally positive person. You look for the positives, you look for the energy. How do we take the positives out of this experience and, you know, spread that so it lasts a little bit longer? Because we're going to come out of this and we'll be going into Christmas, right? It's a time for either super happiness or major misery. I mean, it's the two extremes of emotion, isn't it? So when you think about it, how can we sustain the positives from this so that when we move forward with a smile, with love in our hearts, with energy, with positivity, so that we can maybe all lean into our Ikigai?
You know, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to move the positivity forward, to be honest with you. I think as soon as a vaccine arrives, and as soon as we realize that the vaccine is effective and it actually works, I have a horrible feeling that because we move so much quicker in life than we did even when we were kids, you know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, life is just so much faster. You know, we want to achieve everything by next week, you know, rather than wait 5 years. And I am a little bit nervous that 6 months down the line, so this time next year, let's just assume, let's say a vaccine comes in the spring in the UK. Give us 6 to 8 months once everyone's been vaccinated. I just feel that we'll have this confidence again, and we'll just revert to how it was before, or not exactly how it was before, but we'll soon forget these trials and tribulations we've had this year. Obviously, the people who've lost loved ones won't forget so readily. But I don't know. Sometimes I think we're a little bit arrogant and we just carry on and just move forward and just forget about all the negative sides. I think some of the positives, though, that I'm really hoping that we won't let go of are things like we don't actually have to travel all the way around by planes and polluting the atmosphere. We can do a lot of meetings by Zoom. That I hope is a positive. The fact that we saw, whether there were dolphins swimming in Venice or not, I'm not convinced that was exactly real footage, or whales up the main run. There definitely was an improvement in our natural world because we all stopped. I remember we were looking at those images, weren't we, over Italy when Italy was hit, and you know, I think it was Milan, and no pollution at all, and you know, we all started to take note of David Attenborough just a little bit more than we did previously.
And we did a lot in this house, by the way. We took notice of him quite a lot, so we took it even more.
Well, that I think is a positive. So I'm hoping that the positives are we are looking at the ways in which we treat this world. Can we protect it a little bit more? Can we really appreciate the beauty and the value in the world, and how can we just sustain and look after it a little bit more? Think about better ways of making energy, you know, stop burning fossil fuels, stop being so wasteful, stop throwing away all this packaging, and make everything recyclable. You know, really think about these things. I'm hoping that for me, they are the positives that we will take forward to our future generations. And I think it's our kids' generation who actually is going to make that happen, because I think it's their generation. So I'm talking, just starting university or sort of end of school into university. They're 18 to 23-year-olds. They're the ones that I think have been affected so much, that I'm wondering if their mindset is altered slightly, so they will try and make things better in the future. So for me, they're the positives. How our relationship and how we interact with the world around us, and that has been better during the pandemic. And can that continue? Let's just hope it can do. With regards to other positives, I think the only other positive of lockdown has been that I value my friends and family more than I knew. I mean, of course, it's easy to say you love your family, but to really know that they've got your back and really know that they're supporting you, even from a distance, that was written home for me this year. And I think, to me, that's a massive positive. So that's a personal positive. And then a positive that I see us as a human race, just being more able and understanding and looking after our environment just a little bit better. I think really those two.
I'd love to think you're right, that our young people today, obviously they're our future, and they will come up with all the ideas. My sense is they won't between the ages of 18 and 25, because they just don't get out of bed all day. I mean, that's one experience of lockdown, is 18 to 25-year-olds do not get out of bed all day. But what would we do without Netflix and Prime, right? But I'm kind of grateful that we went through it without having to say homeschool, because I've spoken to parents who are, one's furloughed, one's working from home, 2 young kids, not enough bandwidth on the Wi-Fi to teach, 1 laptop in the we can only be grateful for what we have, not, and I think there's that element for me of my hope coming out of this, is that it's not some kind of big dramatic reset. I don't believe in that kind of drama. I'm too phlegmatic, I think, for that. But because we will go back to travel, because ultimately in business, it's about relationships, and you can be digitally connected. Of course, my whole business is run online these days, but ultimately relationships and intimacy doesn't get built in Zoom or WebEx or MS Teams or whichever other platforms are available. They're built when you're sat at dinner with somebody at the end of a meeting or a workshop, and that's how you build kind of trust in. So I think we will go back, without doubt.
To a certain degree, we have to, because it isn't just about networking and business. I think one of the basic values of a human being is that we need social interaction. We need it.
Yes, as humans.
We absolutely need it. And so it isn't just business. It's everything. I was talking to someone this morning actually about that very point, and I think there will be less traveling, but there are going to be times when you will need to meet in Europe or Asia, wherever it is you're traveling around, because you do need that interaction with human beings. We can't just be insular for the rest of our lives. We just can't. We can't function like that. We're groups. We're not meant to be, on our own. But it's just finding the balance of, like I said before, protecting the planet and doing it at the right level so it satisfies our needs and requirements, but also protecting our environment. So it's just trying to get a good balance. I think we have tipped it over the wrong way. I don't know if it's our fault that this virus has attacked the world. I really don't know. That's another conversation piece completely. But I do think, maybe there's got to be some sort of balance, and we need to find that.
Well, often in order to find balance, you have to go to both extremes of the pendulum. in order to settle back in the middle. And, you know, we were at one end of the pendulum and we moved all the way to the other in the extreme, and it will come back into the middle. Human nature says it will, and it will move back to extremes again. That needle just moves. I know I will end up going back into some form of travel, but not as much.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of my carbon footprint over the last 10 years, for sure. But at the same time, my business is driven by being connected with people in a room together, not just on a screen. We started our conversation with what's your learning and observations been. What's been your highlight? What's been, so last question, what's been something that you've packaged up, put in your heart and thought, you know what, that was great, and it happened because of lockdown?
The best moment, there are two moments that are in my mind forever. So the first moment, the first one is you and Oliver, who's 21, almost 22. The kids were at home during lockdown, which was just bliss. I mean, what parents think that their kids are going to move back into the home when they're 18? It was just great. So my memory is of you and Oliver in the back garden buying all the gym equipment after queuing up for 23 and a half hours because every man and his dog and woman was buying gym equipment when lockdown hit. And I remember laughing because Oliver was doing on his back, is it bench presses?
Yeah.
With a pole. And there was just not enough weights. He's a big lad. And I looked up and there he was. I've got some really nice garden. They're about, you know, about this big. What are they? Lanterns. They're only from IKEA. It's nothing special, but they were lovely, you know. And he had them on either end, and with bricks in them. So all the glass is broken. He's put the bricks in, and he's like this, and the bar's bending. And I was laughing, and the two of you are sort of playing rocky music, and so that really is a positive, and that makes me laugh every time because it was just the most bizarre thing. Rocky theme tune, and you're creating this gym routine using whatever you can find in the garden, you know, just like Rocky. And I think the other one I have is Charlotte, who was bored. Honestly, they were so bored. I really felt for them because they didn't have anything to do.
No.
At least now they're at uni and they're actually, although they're bored and they're on lockdown in their rooms, at least they're having some sort of interaction with fellow students, and they're trying to study online. Let's just say trying.
In its loosest form.
But she was so bored, and bless her, she did, you know, really every day she came out of her room and got dressed and joined us for dinner and, you know, had a great scintillating conversation. But I remember one night she came down and we weren't ready, and she just took the dogs outside and played loud music and did sort of a dance off with them. And I'm thinking, you know, I just love that because I don't think that sort of behavior would have happened in an ordinary day. You know, she was missing social interaction with everybody, and the only people that she had to the only things that she had to play with, that sounds the wrong word, but you know, interact with were the dogs. And you know, they're standing there like going, what are you doing? And you know, it's just, so I think those two moments are just stand out to me because they're things that would never ever have ordinarily happened had we not had lockdown. And it just showed that, you know, although we were all living in such a state, really, you know, the world was falling apart, people are dying, people are ill, you know, that you can find happiness by being together, and you don't need the TV or your Netflix or the phone or the computer. You've just got each other. So when everything falls or fails, the fact that we had each other and actually we found enjoyment with the simplest things was actually a personal highlight, because it meant that there was just such strength and bond within the family. And I think certainly, as from a mum's point of view, that is just you can't beat that, really. So I think that that's really the nicest thing.
I think we've landed on the title for this episode.
Oh, what's that?
It's going to be Ikigai and Dog Dance Off. I think.
I'll be delighted.
You'll get to edit this, Emma Solomon. So thank you for coming on.
All right, so I'll just edit you out.
You can do that. Just make sure it's got the music on the front and back end.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on our 50th episode.
Thank you for inviting me, and I have enjoyed listening to them all while I'm editing. They've been very interesting.
Nice promotion there. Totally shameless. And
there's you with a lockdown t-shirt.
I think it's time to take one of the dogs out for a walk. So I'll see you inside the house in a moment.
Okay. See you later. Thank you.